This
Dave on his way? Oh, wait.
We're waiting for Superintendent to start the meeting, hopefully, if he's here in the next couple of minutes. Welcome. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And pursuant to the bylaws and applicable laws of the... What's that?
The next percent. Yeah.
Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-10, adequate notice of the meeting has been provided by advertising such notice in the Home News Tribune, the Asbury Park Press, the Board Office, the schools, and on Cablevision Channel 118 and Verizon Fios Channel 24, and by filing such notice with the Township Clerk. This meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 12, 2022. The Board will take formal action on payment of bills and other agenda items. Joseph?
Thank you, Mr. Weber. The Old Bridge Township Board of Education acknowledges that the law of this state establishes that members of the public, including members of the board, have the right to record public board meetings using audio or video recording devices, provided that that act of recording does not interfere with the business of this public board meeting. Therefore, the board makes it known that any such recording is to be considered the private recording of the individual and in no manner represents the official record of this board. The board therefore takes no responsibility for such private recording and completely disavows any future use.
Thank you. And the statement of roll call.
Ms. Burns?
Present.
Ms. Callie?
Here.
Mr. Carroll? Mr. Giordano? Ms. Lent? Mr. Marqueta? Mr. Slade?
Here.
Mr. Silikowski? Mr. Weber?
This is a very unusual situation. I don't remember in the 20-plus years I've been on the board where we've had a bare quorum. Two of our board members are ill, which is Mr. Silikowski and Mr. Marchetta, and we are short one from the 9 because of Mrs. DeCaro's resignation from the board to assume her new position on the town council. So hopefully we should be able to still have a meeting, or we will have a meeting, and again, hopefully nobody leaves or gets sick. Otherwise, we'll lose our quorum. Okay. So the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to read the Code of Ethics. The highlighted item, the board recognizes that authority rests with the Board of Education and make no personal promises or take any private action that may compromise the board. Our district goals and objectives, basically, these are the ones that are in place. And one of the things that I'm going to read that is the board has the obligation to provide excellence in education, which is the #1 goal, and also to watch fiscal resilience and obviously pursue the whole child, and strategic planning, initiate and implement a strategic planning process that will guide the district for the next 3 to 5 years, focusing on addressing faculty facility issues. The board goals are work toward achieving Master Board certification, continue to support district and community events, either virtually or in person, continue to embrace cultural diversity at our board meetings that is effective for our community, and continue to encourage two-way communication between the board and the community. So the first item is approval of the minutes. Next week, right? Our student rep is not here. We will have recognition, and Mr. Cittadino, when he arrives, will give his report. Right. Okay, as we speak. We slowed it down just enough. You're on, Dave. At least if I fall from this chair, it's not so far.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up on our superintendent's report, as a follow-up to our committee meeting that we had with long-range planning, that I just want to get the will of the board. At that point, at the long-range planning meeting, we were only able to have the 3 committee members do the straw poll, so to allow the board the opportunity as an entire board to give the board, the administration, the authority to go out and get the vendors necessary for the demographer's report with the building utilization. That would be one straw poll. And the second would be for the administration to get the quotes to receive for anyone, any agency doing the strategic plan for the next 5 years. So I just asked the board president, the board attorney, to conduct that straw poll, so we have the will of the board, and we can go out. There's no cost at this point until we have a motion to accept one of the said vendors for either demographer report or the report for strategic planning.
Straw poll, because the committee recommended both of those items 4-0. We had 2 other board members who were in attendance at the time, and I believe if we had polled them then, they would have felt the same way. So I don't think that'll be an issue, and we'll just add it to the agenda.
Okay. Duly noted. Thank you very much. We'll have a follow-up on the 26th with a full superintendent report.
All right, we'll discuss.
All right. 28th? Okay. 28th.
Any correspondence, Joe?
Yes, there is correspondence. On Tuesday, April 5th, I received a letter from Ms. Jill DeCarroll. Quote, Mr. Mara, Mr. Weber, and Ms. Lent. This letter is to notify you of my resignation from the Old Bridge Board of Education effective Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. The time I have spent as a board member have been some of the most difficult yet rewarding experiences, and I am proud to have been part of the process these past 5 years. It is unfortunate that I will not be able to serve out the completion of my second term, as I have been elected to serve as a town council representative for Old Bridge Township. This is something I have wanted for a long time. My only regret is having to leave this board and the great working relationship I have had with the administration. My goal moving forward is to promote unity between the local government and the school district. As such, I hope we continue to be able to work together for the betterment of this town as a whole. Sincere regards, Jill DeCarroll. So there will be a resolution under board secretary at the next meeting to accept the resignation.
Thank you, Joe. And no other correspondence, I assume? All right, great. Yeah. All right, special committee reports. Does anybody else have anything? Okay. We did have a long-range planning committee, as Superintendent mentioned, and we had 6 board members present at the meeting. There was no action to be taken because otherwise we would have had, we exceeded the committee amount. There were 4 people on the committee at this point, 3 other board members and myself. And after a dissertation, we explained some of the issues that are in front of us, and we need more information to make an intelligent decision, which Superintendent Citadino discussed, such as having a professional demographer who we've worked with before and who we found to be a good vendor. He will address the anticipated growth that's coming through new housing. He will also address our facilities and make any recommendations. Now, there is a tag that goes along with that. The state is very rigid on terms of your criteria on adding new space, building a new school. You can only make a plan that has a projection of 5 years. You can't go beyond that. And just so you're aware of it, when we had done 15 years of research, monitoring the housing market, monitoring all of that. And I think it was 2000 that the state of New Jersey authorized a fund of $8.6 billion for schools to make improvements. We were fortunate enough to get our proposal in, I think, first, second, or third out of the whole state, only because we had been prepared for it. We got the approval in the short term. The election passed around 2 3/4 to 1, which is a very high turnout in favor. So whatever recommendation the demographer comes up with, if it doesn't meet the state's criteria that we fit into, such as either expanding schools or building new schools, we're bound by whatever the state ruling is. The state has told us that we can improve schools, we can renovate them, put air conditioning in, and those things will go on a referendum, which has to be voted on all citizens of the town. This is not one of those things that it's a guaranteed pass, like we can only increase taxes 2%. So it's going to have to be carefully thought out to see if it's legal within the school system what we want to do, because we really haven't had any physical improvements since the referendum, which was approved in September of 2001, and the construction was probably over around 2004. We did add 27 classrooms air-conditioned on the high school when we combined the schools, and we added about 22 classrooms on the elementary level, which is the equivalent of a small school. And we had 3 large gyms across the township to satisfy our own needs and needs of the athletic community for the people who use those things. That's basically the last physical improvement we've had in the district. That's 20 years. So it's certainly appropriate now to at least start working on a path that we can get all of our schools to enjoy air conditioning and whatever improvements we can make within the buildings. If we make an improvement in any given school and the state approves it, they will fund it by 40%, Chris?
Yes.
Which is a lot of money. Last time on the referendum, it was $65 million. The state paid for $19 million of it, so our referendum was $45 million. So it's a process that's going to take months. And when it's done, we have to see if we can get it approved. I don't know if we can get it approved or say it meets the criteria before we go out to the state.
Yeah, and the state, as always, is going to base any expansion on unhoused students, so that
Okay.
will be triggered directly by the demographer's report and analysis. So
Yes.
it's a wait-and-see situation as far as what kind of participation you're going to get from the state.
And this same demographer, I don't know if he did the original one, but I know he did the second. He did the one that was done in 2014 or 15, Dave? Haber?
I don't.
Or Joe?
I don't know if he did. I don't know if he did the original one, but I feel like we referenced him based upon one that was done years before any
Yeah.
of us were in the administration.
Russ Haber's group did the 2006
Yeah, that was
demography
after
report,
the one,
and we
right.
did one in 2014. Those are the only two that did. I'm not.
No, there was one earlier, there was one done with the original referendum.
Yeah, I'm not aware who that was.
Yeah. They were, all of them that we've used, and I think it's either 2 or 3 different demographers, they were all accurate, and looking back at them, their records have been very active. Understand there are things that change. The state only allows you to project 5 years out, and to give you a reason why, the development, Brunetti's development, which is now being built, was originally over 2,000 homes, and it got knocked down because of wetlands and other issues. It got knocked down to a smaller number. And the general development plan for that was approved in 1979. That's 43 years ago. Now they're just starting to build, so that's why you can't always go by. They only build when there's a demand, a lot of it. And Brunetti is the kind of developer that he has more than enough money not to have to be forced into build or sell his property. So that's one of the concerns we have. So we may not get as much permission as we would like to have, and we'll know when he gives us the numbers where we need to go. So that's my report for long-range planning committee. All right. Hearing of residents on agenda item only, which is the action agenda item sheet that you see that's here. Those are the only things that we're going to take action on. All right, that must have been me hitting the mic. All right. All right, is there any hand on the agenda items? Not seeing any. I'll close the public portion. Item number 8, items 1 and 2, which is finance.
You
Is-
skipped curriculum. We didn't get to that yet.
Okay. Where is the curriculum? This is an action?
No action.
No.
We've got to review it.
But finance, though,
We
is an
didn't get to
action?
finance.
Okay, all right,
There will
gotcha. All right. As the attorney says, we have to review the curriculum item, and I don't know if there's any discussion on it. Anybody have a need for discussion? Hearing none? Now we'll move on to finance. Athletics. Am I here? All right, athletics. Any discussion? Moving on.
Action on 1 and 2.
All right, finance, these are actionable items. Item 1 is approve the following bill list, and batch number 1 for $2,070,000, $4.93. Batch number 2, 1 million. These are my reading glasses, I can't read it. 2,918, I can't read the number there, Chris.
You can just say action items 1 and 2.
Yeah, actions 1 and 2.
Need a motion.
I'll accept the motion to move it.
I'll move it.
Burns will second.
Thank you. Roll call. Any discussion? If not, roll call. Yeah.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Callie?
Yes.
Ms. Lent? Mr. Weber? Resolutions 1 and 2 pass.
Which are for next week's meeting. Any discussion from the board on any of those items? Hearing none. We'll move on to non-certificated personnel, and since there's nothing on there, we will skip that. Non-certificated personnel, we will also skip. Is there any discussion on non-certificated personnel other? Which is a retirement. We will hold that for the next month's meeting, the 28th. And any discussion on the remaining items, 4 through 8? Hearing none, move on. Certificated personnel.
Action on number 1.
All right. Move the board approve, this is item number 1, move the board approve, amend, extend the following leaves of absences, and there's an attached list for that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Any discussion on any of the other items? Yes. All right. I'll accept the motion to move certificated personnel, item 1. Thank you.
Second.
Hearing no discussion, roll call.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Callie?
Yes.
Ms. Lent? Yes. Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Any discussions on numbers 2 through 45?
Any discussion on items number 2 through 45? Hearing none. Move along.
Page 24.
And we will, any discussion on item number 23, non-certificated personnel transportation, items 1 through 3? Hearing none. We'll move on. Transportation, move the items 1 through 4, not move, but actually it's through 14. Is there any discussion on any of those items? Hearing none, we'll move on to supplies, equipment, and services. Items 1 through 26, is there any discussion by the board? Hearing none. We'll move on to miscellaneous. Items 1 through 6. Hearing no discussion, we'll move on to board secretary and board business. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we will move on. And at this point, we will move on to the hearing of residents on any school district item.
Hi, Matthew DeFranco, a parent from Shira Elementary. I do want to reiterate to the board, like I did during the strategic meeting, that it is an important, extremely important that the board approve next week that they bring in an independent demographer and also bring in a strategic planner to help, because there are certain members of this committee, especially the president, who is looking to just guide everything to closing a school, with the latest rumor being that it would be Shira Elementary, and that information coming from people in his own family, which is completely disheartening, since that is a newly elected, or a newly selected blue ribbon school in this district, and closing a second school that would be a blue ribbon school would be completely destructive to this entire community. So again, like, the board needs to make sure that there's not agendas on here, especially agendas by individuals who are looking only to close schools and have no input by the community as to what they actually want to do. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a prepared statement about next year's
Can you
school.
just state your name, please?
Ian, my name is Ian Erickson, and 2 of my sons go to Salk, and I have a 3-year-old son that will be attending Southwood in a couple years. So let me just pull this up here. So my family has lived in Old Bridge for 4 generations since 1962, and there's a reason nobody moved out, because Old Bridge is a great town. However, as of late, it seems there is an educational crisis brewing. You see, I have older sons. I hear from them all the time about the terrible food, but that's, I guess, a separate discussion. We all want the best for the kids attending our schools, but I don't think teaching gender identity to 5 or 6-year-olds is how we accomplish this. Did you know that the average age of suicide has been falling, meaning the ages are getting younger and younger? For a long time, and child suicide has been on a steady incline for about a decade. Studies have shown that there seem to be no predictive signs for it. The pandemic has already resulted in a spike in child suicide and suicide attempts, and now the state is proposing we confuse the little ones even more. Why am I saying that kids will only become more confused if we talk to them about such things at a young age of innocence? Ages where they still believe in Santa Claus, or when they grow up they can become Spider-Man. Because it will confuse and endanger kids. A child is either born with XY chromosomes or XX chromosomes. Now, I understand there are very small exceptions to the rule, such as intersex people, but they are extremely rare, and it seems to me, in order for the comfort of an extremely small minority, we are hurting the vast majority. So you're making a rule about a small segment of the minority at the expense of the majority. We want everyone to feel included, but maybe certain things should be left to the parents, their doctors, and other professionals the parents choose to include. Now, not only will these teachings confuse our sons and daughters even more, but it is a direct attack on people of faith. We believe humans were created male and female. My family's faith and what I teach my sons at home is being directly contradicted by the government. So for parents of faith, this will really confuse the kids, because they have multiple authority figures telling them completely opposite things. When I was growing up, there was a term for girls that like to do boy things. We called them tomboys. Every single tomboy I know growing up is now married with children to a man. Just because a girl shows inclinations towards historically masculine things doesn't necessarily mean they should become a boy. And the same goes for boys. Now, by identifying a child's behavior at such a young age and making the decision that they are the opposite sex will only lead to more chaos. Gender is not a social construct. Our genders are ingrained in us biologically. Just like everyone here, I want the best for all our children of Old Bridge, New Jersey. But I really believe that tearing away a child's innocence is not only completely and unequivocally wrong, but will only add to the already increasing burden of having a negative impact on our kids' mental health. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michael Kelly. Excuse me. I just wanted to state quickly that I moved to Old Bridge from Queens, New York, 2006. Love the town. It's grown in masses since then. One of the things that I see getting worse in our schools is the issue of racism. I have my older son who goes to Sandburg, being called names, my younger son being called derogatory names, hearing his friends being called the N-word. Now I know there's something in the works where my younger son's school has a diversity committee where they're teaching things about different cultures. Like the book that I saw the other night dealing with Indian cultures, African American cultures, and so forth. I like that idea, but right now the way it stands, it seems a little disorganized because each school has a different way of doing it. I would love to see if there was a uniform process for all the schools. I know that they have their option. The other issue that I would like to address is when a child is faced with this type of situation where they're called a derogatory name or treated a certain way, teachers get informed, but nothing further comes of that in some instances. One instance with my older son, it actually did go to the Board of Education and it was addressed. Unfortunately, I don't know what the outcome of it was. I was just told it was taken care of. While I understand that there is a rule that we can't know what happens in terms of discipline for another student or child, I think those that are involved should be made aware, because my son has gotten to the point where he doesn't want to report these issues because he feels nothing is going to get done. He's not the only one. I've spoken to some of his friends, the same thing. I also think that these diversity committees in the younger schools, they should slowly introduce some of the students into it so that they have an idea of what they're going to be learning and dealing with as they move up through middle school and high school. Thank you for your time.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm a little nervous, sorry. I'm just speaking on behalf of, I guess, a lot of parents
Can you
from
just-
Open.
Can you just state your name, please?
I'm Allison Licata. I have two girls, one in kindergarten, one in second grade at McDivitt School. I'm highly concerned with, so I'm kind of familiar with McDivitt because I was a physical therapist there a long time ago, several years ago, for many years, and it went before Cheesequake was closed. So it was, it's still a wonderful school, wonderful teachers, and I know they try very hard, but it's an overcrowded school. And I can see it on all levels. I mean, I work with kids from Old Bridge, outpatient as a therapist, so I hear everything. And I know people in the school that work there, and I see what's happening. So I say this also because you're thinking about closing other schools now. So, and I also work in another district nearby now that's very big. It's bigger than Old Bridge, but it's not far. And they're actually building extensions onto their schools. All the elementary schools have new playgrounds. The McDivitt playground's falling apart. You can barely use it. It's ridiculous. There's 2 schools basically that have been pushed into it. My daughter is in an ICR classroom, which I'm not against at all. I actually was one of the first classrooms. I actually was the therapist for that classroom. They're much older now, so, and it worked well. I'm fine with that. The problem is that there's no room. They have 8 IEPs, which is allowed, but it's a lot. There's 3 kids with a one-to-one. Paras. There's 5 adults needed in the classroom. My daughter's been coming home with massive behaviors that she's never had. You know, she does not have an IP, but, you know, I don't feel like she's learning appropriately. I don't feel like there's 19, 20 boys in the class and only 5 girls. She doesn't have a lot of kids to socialize with. And the reason why is there's no more space. You can't even, if you want to make, or the parents wanted another LD classroom, they don't even think they have one there anymore. You can't have one because there's no room. And then if you put another LD self-contained classroom, then you're only allowed 12 kids in the class. So that wouldn't be good for Old Bridge, I guess, in a way to make, where are you going to put a classroom like this? Everybody needs to be in the right classroom. And if you're just going to keep closing schools, you're not going to have the ability to make classrooms function properly. And it's not functioning properly right now. It hasn't been at all. I'm sorry that other people haven't come to speak up, but lots of parents are talking about this. And it's not just that. There are so many kids in the class, in the school, that the therapists are pushed into the library. They don't have a swing, they have nowhere. When I used to work there, we used to have mats, we made our own little sensory area. People used to come in and use it, and I would guide them, okay, let's give them a break, let's do, why don't you try this, why don't you try that? Now they're stuck out in the middle of a wide open library. They don't have the appropriate way to treat the kids who need the sensory and the regulation and all that, okay? There's not enough space. There's not enough space for everybody. And there's also not enough space, I don't know about the other schools, but it sounds like there's not enough space there either. Okay? And, you know, why would you make another LD classroom? You could just, let's just take 26 kids in a class, or 28 kids in a class, with no paras, and the teacher's got to do everything on top of it. Now you have no playground. I have never been to an elementary school with a dilapidated playground that people have complained about since, I believe, 1995, that has nails sticking out of it. It should have been taken down by now. When 2 schools are pushed there, you have enough space to build. I actually work in an elementary school in a different district, and they're building an entire 3-story, 2 to 3-story. They're putting all special needs in there. We have our own space. We get to order $2,000 of equipment every year, and I'm not going to say where, but let's just say, and they have built playgrounds on every elementary school in the past couple of years. Now, it's almost like you're closing. This is a Band-Aid to what you're trying to do. I don't understand why they're able to get the money to do these things, but we cannot. And so now everybody's going to be affected, everybody. And you can't just throw everybody where you want to throw them and then say this is going to work, because it doesn't work like that. So, thank you.
Is this better? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Babbitt, and I am a parent of a child in 5th grade at Shroff. That's news to me. A little shocking. I'm also the co-leader of the Special Education Parent Advisory Group. I just wanted to piggyback on what I'm thankful for the parents that get up and speak. You know, so much of what we talk about, Diane is here this evening as the president of SEPTA, and she and I talk a lot about parent advocacy and how important it is for parents to come to meetings and to speak out. So I'm really glad to hear parents who are speaking out. Whether we agree on issues or not agree on issues, just parent involvement is so important, and I love to see that. With that said, I'm asking for 2 things. One, that Mom Allison, I think we were like writing back and forth. Thanks for speaking up. And you know, behaviors and our children is something that we're hearing a lot about. We're getting a lot of input from parents on behaviors in the classrooms, and teachers who, you know, again, are just doing their best, and they need the supports, and, you know, we want to work together to try to figure out some solutions to that. In addition, some things have come up regarding inclusion and diversity and equity, so to that gentleman as well. That's something that our CPAG and our SEPTA feel very strongly that we would really like to see some consistency in our school district around committees, task force. We'd love to see the creation of a task force on inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. Bringing parents, really having parents have a voice at the table to help drive some of the change and some of the improvements. It's looking at what are the best practices that are going on in this district, highlighting them and making them inclusive of the entire district. We hear about some buildings in this district. Some are doing it better than others. Some are doing a great job. Others, they're not getting as many parents involved. So we really want to try to figure out why and what we can do better. There's always, as you say, there's always room, I think it's the room for improvement. I find myself saying that a lot lately too. There is room for improvement, and we really do want to see some improvement. It's about looking and saying, okay, how can we do better? Looking at the table, who's missing from the table? Looking in the room, who's missing from the room? How do we get those people in the room? And so that's why I just feel so strongly about this, and we have to get more parents involved, and I'm just asking for your continued collaboration in this. And, you know, if you could also try to, you know, I saw in the goals, two-way communication. Two-way communication means responding to emails. It means having communication from Board of Ed members. If I send you an email, please grant me the courtesy, even if you just write back to me and say, thanks, noted, received, have a great day, something. Not receiving a response back makes me think that my voice goes nowhere. Thank you. Have a nice night.
Andrew Lewis, OBEA. I'm looking at the agenda at the recognition item for this month's agenda, and it's move the board to recognize Kelly Service substitutes for their dedication and support to our students and staff. I know a couple of these people. I know 3 or 4 of them, of the 9 who are on here. I'm sure they're all great, but by recognizing Kelly Services, kind of giving the impression that everything is going well with Kelly Services. I've had conversations with administration, you know, behind the scenes, about some things that aren't going so well. So it's kind of shocking and kind of a slap in the face to the people who work in this district to see that on the agenda. You know, there's many issues with Kelly Services. On a consistent basis, probably near daily, there are spots not filled that we're pulling RTI or related arts or ESL teachers to cover for teachers who are absent. Teachers missing preps often to fill in when Kelly Services hasn't put someone in the spot in the buildings. I know that they came in right before COVID and they haven't really had a chance to prove themselves, but to see them be recognized despite all the issues with some of the subs, probably not any of these, but some of the subs in the buildings. If you look at page 12 of our agenda, you'll see that for ESY, we're paying paras who are employed by the district $16.67 an hour. If a para, and that's the rate that they get, the hourly rate that they get year round. A para from Kelly Services get $18 an hour. Now, there's benefits to working in the district versus being employed by Kelly Services, but I still think it's a slap in the face that they're being recognized on an agenda. I know in May we recognize our teachers and ESPs of the year, but I mean at this rate then we should be recognizing all, you know, over 1,000 employees who work here for their work, especially during COVID. And you know, with that increase, the Kelly Services increased their pay rate just last week for teachers and paraprofessionals. And if we're looking at the budget, increased pay rate to our subs means increased budget costs. And you know, I know that we had our substitutes employed in the district by the district for many years, and you know, we had trouble filling those spots, and that's why we brought in Kelly Services. But I don't think that they've solved the problem. And you know, I wasn't prepared to speak about Kelly Services. I was going to give it some time as my discussions with administration. That's what we decided. But to see it on the agenda this month really is a slap in the face to some of the people who put in the work every day to make up for what Kelly Services lacks. Thank you.
Seeing no further hands, I'll close the public section. And we can move on.
Mr. Gordon, I'll address a few topics that were brought up. You know, I think it's important, and it's why a lot of community members and families are here. As you can see, conflicting sides of different things. We have one side saying that we need more celebration of diversity and inclusiveness, and then other side saying, well, not that inclusiveness, not that diversity, that we don't want to recognize that. And we come from a very broad, diverse community. And it comes down to you as the people of the community guiding us as we move forward. You know, you're never going to make everyone happy, but this district and the schools should be reflective of the wishes of everyone and not just the ones who voice their concerns the loudest or on social media. That's why it's important for everyone to be there. Again, you talk about, you know, it was addressed that the desire to close a school. That has not been an administration recommendation to close any additional schools at this time. I know it was a topic that was brought up through consolidation of schools at the long-range planning meeting, and then the next speaker talks about overcrowdedness, which we've heard that, that's not the case. So again, when we go through the strategic planning piece and go through the long-range planning, have the demographer, please continue to be that voice, so that everyone has your concerns and your child's best interest at heart when they're making these decisions. The topic of racism and bias, and again, I think it's symbolic of the times. I think it's symbolic of the culture and climate in which we're all living in, and we try to address it on a regular basis, and we try to do it through education, and sometimes you get pushed back on that education. It's important that you do know that there's an HIB process in place that looks out for the students who are the victims of bullying, harassment, intimidation, but also looks at our students who conduct these behaviors as children and students. And that's why they're students, because they're to learn. And sometimes the consequence doesn't have to be so debilitating that you can never come back from it. Everyone makes mistakes, and you educate, you rehabilitate, and you continue to move on. The anonymity piece as to something that when someone says something that's biased or racist, I assure you that we've gone through over that with our student handbook. It's in there. Certain acts that have been brought up in the past few weeks go through the police department. It's not a requirement by the state. It's our standard practice that we bring in the police department. Old Bridge Police Department with our SROs have been doing a great job fielding these, taking reports, kicking them up to the prosecutor's office if they feel it is so warranted, and then on the school district level, it's also brought to my attention for a superintendent's hearing. We've had at least 25 superintendent hearings in the past 3 months, in which I take time, meet the families, go over what happened, and try to look in the best interest of not only the student who made those mistakes and how to educate them and continue their education going forward, which we're required to do, but to also protect those students who are the victims in such cases. But just like anything else, if a 16-year-old is involved in a crime, when you watch the news, it says, because it's a minor, we cannot divulge who they are. The same thing is here. If a student has done something that is you find upsetting and you find is a violation of your own child's rights, it doesn't mean that child who did it loses their rights at the classroom door, that their anonymity is still protected because they are a minor. And just because they did it to your child, I am not allowed to tell you what their discipline was, just like a court could not tell you what a minor did, even in something as a criminal act. So we can only assure you that in all of those matters, that they are brought to my attention, the police department's attention, and if the police feel as though it's prosecutable, to the prosecutor's office. I will, at the conclusion, just ask Dr. Hoker to talk a little bit more about our diversity, equity, and inclusion teams. But I just wanted to touch base with Mr. Lewis on the Kelly Services. I think what we're missing here, missing the mark on something, is that this motion is to recognize substitutes who have come regularly every day during the school throughout this pandemic and getting us through it. And agreed, there are some out there that do not fulfill what we'd like them to do as a Kelly Service subs, but doesn't mean you throw out the baby with the bathwater and say, we're not going to recognize anyone. In fact, if we want better Kelly Service subs, then we want to recognize the ones and that are doing a great job and say, this is the role model, this is who we want you to work like, this is who we want you to be like, and you're here so our teachers who are in the OBA can take sick days knowing that there's someone coming in for them. We're not replacing OBA teachers with Kelly Service subs unless that teacher is not here, unless that secretary is not here, unless anyone in those professional areas are not here. That's when the Kelly Service sub portion comes in. There was a time that we had substitutes in a pool who were our own, and they were through the OBA. That is not the case right now any longer. for various reasons. So we had to get substitutes from outside the district. And again, we're not recognizing Kelly Services here. That's not what the motion says. We're recognizing several Kelly Service subs who've done a great job and allowed our teachers to take sick time and take personal time so that there'll be someone for continuity in the classroom. And, you know, again, I think you know that at any meeting at any time, I will recognize anyone who's doing their job and doing a great job. And, you know, the May meeting is just one of those days in which we do it ceremoniously. But at any time, I applaud anyone who's doing a great job and gets the acknowledgement they need to do so. Dr. Hooker?
Thank you for addressing that. And I just want to add that while we have a substitute shortage, I don't think that it's Kelly Services' fault that we have a substitute shortage. There is a teacher shortage. There is a workforce in general shortage. So when it comes to substitutes, and people have the option to choose from lots of different positions elsewhere, they're taking them. We have increased our substitute pool significantly, almost doubled it this year. It's still not enough because while we're increasing, our staff absences are increasing, understandably. There are more people that are utilizing their sick time. People don't stay home when they're sick anymore. That used to be the case. People would come to work when they're sick, and we don't do that anymore. So that increases our absences. Every day we watch the number of absences and the locations where we have high priorities of an increase in staff out. And I would say that on any given day between 7 p.m. and the next morning, the number of absences increases by 20%. So it becomes difficult to plan the coverage because what is right now will be very different the next morning. So these substitutes who are building perms and go to those locations every single day, we were recognizing them because they have done that on a daily basis and they have covered any position, multiple positions in a day, trying to make it easier for the staff. I wish that we had another 200 substitutes and that I didn't have to pull people every single day. Hopefully that will get better, and that was one of the reasons to increase the pay rates between now and the end of the school year when the absences increase even more significantly. Hopefully we're going to steal some substitutes from other districts. The diversity, equity, and inclusion committees, we do have teams in every building, and yes, they are handled a little bit differently this year in each building. At the beginning of the year, the majority of our staff participated in a workshop. Unfortunately, it was a remote workshop. I think it would have been better if we could have held it in person. We were unable to do that. We did the best that we could. Our administrators participated in the training. It was an attempt to build the dialogue and start the conversation. The diversity equity team, the district team, has provided resources to our administrative staff to turnkey with their staff a calendar of topics to cover at staff meetings monthly to continue that dialogue. We have a partnership with CJ Pride to help recruit diversified staff. We also partner with Monmouth University with our diversity equity team attends. I think there's 6 workshops this year that they are attending to bring back and turnkey additional information to our staff. And there are students that participate in those workshops twice, that participated once already and will again in the upcoming months. Tomorrow we have our students who are presenting on diversity, equity, and inclusion to our administrative team. They are presenting, and one of the topics that they will address is what I want my teacher to know. So from their perspective, these are things that we have in place and we are addressing, and we are meeting to plan for next year already, and how can we improve and build upon the conversation that started this year. There's a tremendous amount of work that has to be done, but we're doing it. We're starting it. It's a big district, and we have to get through, and in order to change the culture and make a shift, it takes baby steps to get there. But we've taken some of those steps, and we are continuing to do that, and we'll continue to address it. Thank you.
Just one more item, because I had a checklist and I forgot someone on the checklist. I'm sorry, Allison? Yes. You don't have to tell me. Can you tell me where you work? Okay. No, no, just because, you know, when, oh, no, that, I only say that because, as you're aware, Old Bridge School District lost $3.5 million this year. The total since we've lost state aid S2 numbers is
16 million.
16 million. Well, that's a great question, and you know, I understand that, but so Woodbridge got $20 million extra this year, so they got $20 million more in state aid this year than last year. Their township, with their extra money, built extra football fields in Woodbridge. If I got $20 million this year, I would get everybody a new playground. But I got it. There are so many things when the state funding formula, which by law they were just brought to courts to release the formula, but the formula is very undercover and they don't tell you what it is. They base some of it on enrollment, and we have had a reduction in enrollment over the past 10 years, 10,000 students down around to 8,000 students, but the inequities that I'm demonstrating right now, that we would lose $16 million over the course of the past 4 years, while Woodbridge gets $20 million alone in just this year, is incredible. And they got more last year, and they got more the year after that, the year prior to that. So, you know, I'm not going to blame them for getting additional funding, and you know, a lot of it is politics, and a lot of it is everything else. So, you know, again, if we were able to get that kind of money, that would be great and something we would do. I'll send out the maintenance department to take a look at the playground there. I think they've already been there, but to see what they could do better with it. But right now, we're looking at saving programs and educators. And if I had those kind of funds as this board, we would be looking at slides and swing sets. But that's not a priority when you're losing millions of dollars per year. I definitely understand that portion of it. We've had the conversations about classrooms and the capacities within the classroom. I encourage you to keep on having those conversations with us.
Is anyone from the board? I do. Lisa?
Can you all hear me? Okay. I was out for a little bit with hernia surgery, so I missed the meeting in which we discussed the committees and how you formulated who was on the committees and who took chairs. So I would just like you just to explain exactly how you determined how each member of the board was put onto a committee and how you figured out who should be chair of the committee.
Well, basically, I've been on the board off and on, mostly on since 1994.
No, I understand. I don't need a bio or your resume. I'm just asking for an explanation on how you determined the committees and who took chairs.
I wasn't giving you my bio, I was giving you my experience. And what I said then at the public meeting, and I'll say it again, is that I made my choices for who sat on specific committees and who should chair them based on my observations of board members previously, how they handled their responsibilities to those committees, and I tried to pick people who were hadn't been, obviously, 2 new members didn't fall into that group necessarily, but the other returning people on there, I made my decision on working with the great majority of them for a number of years, and how the committees perform their duties. That was basically it. And I didn't
So-
care whether you were a man or a woman. It was strictly
Well,
based.
well, it's funny that you bring that up,
I
because
bring it up
that's
because it's
leading
gonna
to
be
my
brought
next
up.
question. If the chairs were based on your observations of our abilities, there's 4 women that sat on the board, totaling 1.5 chairs. 5 men, totaling 12 chairs.
And there's
So I would like to know, what ability do you see that I lack?
that you like.
Right, because I'm a co-chair with you. So I would like to know how I could run a multi-million-dollar company as a VP, but I am not qualified enough to run a township committee on my own without you holding my hand.
I certainly did need to hold your hand, and that's why I valued you being on that committee.
But as a co-chair,
Yeah, I don't have any problem with you chairing the committee if you'd like, if that's your preference.
no, my problem is that there is a lack of female in roles of authority here, and that you have zero issue with it. And I'm just curious how you sit as president, but lack the ability to see that women can offer more than you're allowing them to right now. You can look at me all you want. I'm waiting for an answer.
As I said before, I made my decision on my experience as a co-board member with most of the people that are on any of the committees.
So do you not have faith in your own board?
Well, I think the role of a committee person is, it's a two-way street in how they handle their responsibility.
'Cause-
Meaning, may I finish?
Absolutely, go.
What I believe is that the committee is supposed to be the liaison between the administration and the board. And traffic on that can go both ways. The board can come up with an idea, and they want the committee to work with the administration and see if they can come up with a proposal. On the other hand, when things are proposed by the administration, the people who are on a specific committee should be there, seeing if it fits within the confines of what the board should do or what it should do. And even if they come back for, let's take a recent issue. There's a discussion about the Esports. And as it's been explained to us, and it was the report of the superintendent at the last meeting. I don't know that if there was a committee that was made aware of this process, or that there was potentially going to be,
It went through the curriculum committee.
what's that?
It went through the curriculum
Yeah.
committee.
And did they
He's
support?
speaking super fast, so he could just back up right away.
Did they tell us what the criteria was? For example, how is it funded?
There was a presentation at the curriculum meeting. Mr. Solikowski is the chair of that, so if he did not ask that question or report it back to you, I can only lead that to Mr. Solikowski's ability to lead that committee.
It
Yeah.
was part of the presentation at the curriculum committee.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in. You were here, Mr. Weber, when, oh God, their names escape me. Dr. Calandria and somebody else gave a presentation. And Dr. Hoker, I'm so sorry. They gave a full
I was at the
presentation.
committee.
I'm sorry,
I
I'm
was
trying
at
to answer your question.
Go ahead,
Dr.
finish.
Hoker and Dr. Calandria gave a full presentation. Unfortunately, a fire alarm went off, thank you, Mrs. Oakdyke, in the middle of it. But the bulk of the same exact presentation that was given at the committee meeting, where all the board members were welcome to attend, I don't believe you were at that committee meeting.
So
But you
then I
did,
wasn't at the presentation, is what you're saying?
what?
That I wasn't at the presentation? is what
First presentation. You were at the second presentation, and the question was asked, where's the money coming from? How's it being funded? How long is it being funded? Why are we, spending money on this as opposed to that? And all of those questions were answered fully by Dr.
Well,
Hoker and Dr. Calandria.
And my question, which still stands, is it $700,000, I believe, of the federal aid, correct?
Well, I'm
That-
going to turn that question over to Dr. Hochberg.
Can we just finish my question before we go on to another question?
I'm sorry, Lisa.
I'm sort of sorry, but, so you're saying that you based your chair decisions on your observations of our abilities. Now, nothing against you back here. We had 2 male board members on a half a month, a full month. So you saw in them the ability to do more than, as you yourself have said, that you've been on this board for years and have worked with others for years. So the 2 males that you happen to have known for 4 weeks,
No.
you saw, as a board
Oh,
member,
as a board member, sure.
you saw better qualities than people that have been on this board for years.
Well, let me put it this way. I didn't see the qualities that would be appropriate in some of the people who weren't appointed.
See, unlike you, I'm fine with constructive criticism, so I would like to know, what do you see in me that lacks the ability to be chair?
Nothing.
Then why, without pressure, on your own, you did not put me as chair?
Well, I also attempted to
And
reach
trust,
out to you many
trust me, I
times.
do not want anyone to think that this is anything about me becoming chair. It's about female representation in authoritative roles. If you value my opinion as you're saying right now, I suggest you go home and rework this. Because as we speak about diversity, equity, and inclusion, you should include the females of the group. And you should make it more equitable.
I will do that.
Well, I appreciate the condescending, I will do that.
Oh, it's not condescending.
Let's see next meeting.
Sure, no problem.
Sorry, you could go back to your other
Anyway,
question.
the question now that since it came out is $700,000 of ESSER money, is it, to pay for this program? Is that true, Dr. Hogan?
Correct.
And are we back academically without having a need for that money? Do we know where we are, why we were going to spend $700,000 on a program that do you have questions on? Is how much does it, it's an after-school program, is it not?
Everything that you're asking is specifically in the presentation that we provided and is available. It's on the website, so I can pull that up, and there's a narrative in there that had to be provided as part of the ESSER application, and it addresses that $750,000. I believe it's 750, it might be 777. Specifically addresses the components that are required in the ESSER application.
And is part of the presentation that you're talking about that was done at the previous meeting?
Correct.
All right. And when the question came up of what the academic value to it was, I had a little thought after the meeting, and this is basically targeted for middle school children?
No, it
No?
is targeted, it is an extension of the STEAM opportunities that we provide through the maker spaces at the elementary and continues on to the high school.
So the intent is it's going to be from the 6th grade on only at this point?
It's going to be an extension of the maker spaces from the elementary and this is the extension 6th through 12th grade,
Okay.
correct?
So my question still comes back to not knowing if COVID is totally gone at this point, that it may not resurrect its ugly head over the next short future. I suspect an awful lot of people who have children in the schools are very concerned about making sure our kids are in the place academically that they lost over the last year and a half of COVID. And this, it's 2 years, it's funded, it's available money. I don't know at this point, without a very accurate, factually based assessment of where we are academically, that I would put this on the short list to do first.
I would disagree, and I can, at the next meeting, if you want additional information on the academics of where we are and the impact of the esports and how that will assist our students, we provided that in the presentation, but we can bring those specific details up to address your concern.
Yeah, I would like that. And also, is it looked at as a curriculum committee, or what kind of program is it?
There is curriculum involved, yes.
And as I understand it, there are 165 districts in the state of New Jersey who are participating?
That are participating in a particular yes.
All right, and for the people in the audience, we have about 600 districts in the state, so it gives you an idea of, right now, it's about 30% of the districts. So I just don't feel I know enough about where we are academically, and I think the parents certainly share that concern. I hope they do.
Again,
I just want to, because a lot of these questions were asked and answered at the last meeting and at the curriculum meeting, or could have been asked at that time too. This $760,000 is not, the $779,000 is not the entirety of the ESSER funds. The largest portion of the ESSER fund money is going towards learning loss and the programs that we're already doing right now after school, the programs that we will do over the course of this next summer and what we did last summer, and the installation of programs within the classroom throughout the course of the workday. This money is an extension of, and you work in finance a lot, and how grants work. Grants are specifically guided in certain areas. So if you're going to accept the money, if you don't accept it, it's just going to go to another district. But if you do accept the money, you have to earmark it towards certain things. And in there are two areas in which this money is earmarked. One is towards STEAM and STEM education, and it falls under that, and that's why it was approved by the federal and state government. And two, student engagement, how to get students back and involved in schools, want to spend more time in schools, because the longer we have them, the better that they're going to learn and have those opportunities. So the student engagement piece. And I can even send you a whole article about it from Administrative Magazine, how districts across the country are using this funds just for this particular program. And just because 30% of the districts are doing it, I don't, that's the old way of thinking, that Old Bridge should be wait to be last before we do something. We should be at the cutting edge of doing new things for our students to get them back in our schools and get them engaged. Not wait to see what 99% of the districts do and then maybe do that too.
and I just want to add to that one of the things we did discuss at the last meeting was the career path and how this sets students up and the opportunities that it promotes within the esports, the announcing, the graphics component. It's not just the esports gaming that is the one piece of it, but the grant also funds the infrastructure, which will be here long after the grant is gone, and that was another piece that was discussed.
I'd like to know how much ESSER money has not been tagged yet used of the $6.4 million. What's the cumulative total up to this point? What is available for us in ESSER money based on what we've been granted?
ESSER 3 money of this?
Whatever number it is, Joe, I couldn't tell you that.
Well, there have been three
Right.
ESSERs.
I guess basically what is unspent at this point out of the cumulative total of monies from any ESSER grant?
Well, the ESSER 3 money, minimal disbursements have been made because it was not approved yet. There was some minor adjustments that had to be made, administrative adjustments. The ESSER 2 money, I can't answer that question at this meeting. I'll answer it at the next meeting. And the ESSER 1, the same thing. I'm not prepared to answer that question.
So obviously, if there's plenty of room in the ESSER budget, but again, the unknown is always laying out there for another year and a half with COVID until we really believe it's totally beat. So I have some questions and I have some concerns, and I'd like to have those answers totally vetted. Okay. Anybody else with old business?
I have some. At the long-range, wow, this is loud. I apologize. At the long-range committee meeting, Mr. Weber, you said that yourself and several board members were going to tour the schools Has that tour happened?
We started it. It's not finished yet.
Okay, did I miss the email where you asked the board members if they wanted to be included?
No, you didn't miss it. I didn't send one.
Oh, okay, so what board members are on that tour?
Anyone on the committee who wanted to go, but certainly we can include it to as many board members as you want.
Well, you're only a woman. Oh, sorry.
Any board member who would like to help finish the tour would be welcome.
I
Well,
would like to
we would
have an invite.
like
next
to
time
have
you
known that it was starting. You know, a little information.
Tempus Fugit.
Yeah.
Time flies. In
Whatever.
Latin.
Okay. I'm going to turn my direction towards some good things. I just wanted, I didn't want to wait 2 more weeks to give a shout out to the Old Bridge High School PTSA for their Tricky Tray. I attended. I think there were one, two, how many board members were there? You were there, right? I was there. I think that was it. I'm sorry, a resigned board member was there also. Kim Castaigne and Stacy did a phenomenal job. And somebody read this for me at the PTSA meeting, but even though it wasn't the 10th anniversary because we skipped one because of COVID, I was president when Kim did the first PTSA Tricky Tray. And I remember going to bed having nightmares because we decided to do a big Tricky Tray instead of the Tricky Tray that went along with the fashion show. And I had nightmares for months thinking, oh my God, what if we don't make enough money? And we blew that out of the water, and they have been blowing this out of the water every year since. And the amount of work that goes into this to raise money for our high school seniors, it's just a phenomenal task, and you guys did a fabulous job. So. I also wanted to thank Mr. Lewis for inviting Mrs. DeCaro and myself. I know, Mr. Weber, that you got an invitation from, right, directly from Mr. Lewis to pass on to the rest of the board, but we didn't get that invitation to attend the Middlesex County Education Association dinner, honoring our own Nancy Coughlin for being not only county, but state ESP, thank you. Wow, senior moment here. ESP of the year, and in addition, as a surprise, the OBEA nominated SEPTA, and Diane Michaels was there as a complete surprise to her. As a matter of fact, I have a video of her cheering for Nancy Coughlin because she thought she was being called up. It took her a while to realize that Diane herself was being called up. But I just wanted to give thank you to Mr. Lewis for making sure that other board members were made aware of the opportunity. And Mr. Weber, when you get those invitations, it'd be really good if you kind of pass them along to the other board members.
I would suggest that Mr. Lewis be given a team distribution at administration to use this to contact all of the board members as well. In case I should be traveling or anything and I miss my email, I'm sure that he has the ability to do that. If you can send it to him.
Anyway, okay. And, sorry, Mrs. DeCaro, I'm not getting anywhere with most of this stuff. I just want to give a shout out to her. Congratulations for winning town council person twice. We are going to miss you on the board, but as a resident of Ward 4, I'm benefiting in one way while I'm going to probably be suffering in another. Mr. Parton or Mr. Mara, can you just clarify the date the time starts running from? Would that be the date that you received or the date that it was announced?
In this case, Mrs. Callie, because Mrs. DeCaro was sworn in as a council member, that is the effective date.
Okay, so
So it
Tuesday,
is-
April 5th.
Yes.
And
So you have
that's
65 days from
65
that
days.
date to fill the vacancy on your board.
Okay, and we're going to advertise that?
That's a discussion for the board. The board should, at this point, direct Mr. Mara to place the advertisement so that you get feedback from as many members of the public as are interested.
Okay, well, being
And
that
then
we
you-
only have 65 days, I mean, is that something we should be discussing now, or do we wait 2 weeks for our next meeting, or
You can
is this a
certainly
closed
discuss it now
session?
under, no, it's not a closed session.
Okay.
Under new business, which we're kind of transitioning into now.
Okay.
So, yes, you can.
I'm sorry.
You can certainly discuss that right now.
All right, because I did do a little research, and I have the policy regarding appointing, and I also have the best practices from the New Jersey School Boards Association. And the New Jersey School Boards Association recommends doing the interviews in public. I guess the procedure is that it's advertised and people submit, I don't know whether it's a resume or a letter of interest, and then they're contacted for a date and a time to come. And I know in the past, these interviews have been done in private. The vote has to be done in public. But I would suggest that we follow the School Board Association recommendation and do these interviews in public so that the public can hear. I mean, they vote in November for who we want. I think that they should have say on who we replace as well.
Certainly, it is.
I don't know the legality of that. I'm just suggesting that these interviews be done in public. Yeah.
No.
No,
it's
they
the-
don't.
It's the
Just the
opposite of
vote.
that.
They don't.
The 3 parts of the process are that you can have the interviews in private or in public. That's a board decision. Then the discussion of qualifications of the candidates per your bylaws, per the authorities on that, are discussed in executive session so as not to single out, embarrass, or discuss members of the public in front of other members of the public. The vote on appointing the person to fill the vacancy is then always held in public. And that is the end of the process. You swear the person in, and that person is a seated board member for the remainder of 2022 only. Then that is an unexpired term. You had 1 more year, correct? Mrs. DeCaro had 1 more year on the board, so this November you will have 4 seats up, 3 3s and 1 1, meaning that somebody, even if the person is appointed for this calendar year, that person could choose to run again, or other people could choose to run for the 1-year unexpired term. Then they would have the opportunity to run again in November 2023, because everyone loves a good campaign around here.
I was just looking at that paragraph in the bylaws. So our bylaws don't state public or executive session. It says the Board of Education shall interview candidates in public or executive session. So again, I am recommending, I don't know if we need a motion or if it needs a vote, or what the other board members feel about this, but I recommend that we follow the New Jersey School Boards Association best practices guidelines and conduct these interviews in public.
I agree. I would like to see them in public. The public votes on all of us in November. They should be able to see what each candidate that is looking to replace offers, and just give us a little bit of feedback and just see what's going on.
You
I
certainly
agree.
have the right to do it. That is completely a board call. The only qualifying factor on that is to avoid giving an unfair advantage to any of the candidates. Bring them in one at a time.
Yeah, that's the way it was done last time.
Yes.
One at a time, okay. So how do we go about deciding that?
I just interject, so for the board secretary point of view, all I need is a date by which we need to receive the resumes. So if you give me the date that you want me to, whether it's 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, I could at least start that process. And then once I have all the resumes in, I can distribute it to the board, and you can decide when you would like to interview them. But as for tonight, I think I would like a specific date as to when we want to close the posting for the vacancy.
I would suggest no later than 2 weeks. I mean, if this already took place on April 5th and we're within 65 days, we have to do this. If we get applications in within 2 weeks, and then we could bring it 2 weeks after to start interviewing? I mean,
Yeah.
we're already at like 30-something days then.
So, Lisa, two weeks from when it's advertised, like, so say it's, the advertisement gets in the paper Monday, I don't think it will, but then 2 weeks from Monday would be the deadline.
You should probably back it out so that you can do the interviews at your May 10th meeting. That's your agenda meeting. So you'd want to have everything in well before that so that if there's any defect with any of the applications, not that they're formal, they're informal applications anyway, but you want to give people time, but give yourselves time between submission deadline and the interview process. It's May 10th and May 17th, I believe.
So
do
do
we
the
want to
interviews
want
at
to
May
use
10th?
do we want to use April 29th as the closing of the posting date?
That would make sense as far as the spacing for the public and the board. Everyone okay with that?
Yes, yes.
Okay, done. Thank you.
All right, so can I make a motion so we get an answer as to whether or not we're doing these in public?
The answer is yes for the moment, Ms. Callie. The reason I say that is because you have 5 members present and there are 8 board members right, actually there are kind of 9 board members right now, but you have 4 people absent, 3 people absent. So if you have unanimous position from the board right now, then you have your answer. You can take a straw poll now. If the straw poll is unanimous, the board has spoken, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Do I need to?
All right, so on the question of having the board interviews on May 10th or whenever they're ultimately held publicly with board members or candidates being brought in one at a time, yes or no, Mrs. Burns,
Yes.
Mrs. Callie,
Yes.
Mrs. Lent,
Absolutely.
Mr. Slade,
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
No. I feel that the full board should be part of that decision. They represent both sides of the aisle, I believe, and it's something as important as that is. I don't think that 5 members who are here and the 3 members are not here and one obviously is not on the board any longer. So my position is strictly that I believe 8 heads are better than 5.
But we're not deciding on who to put in, we're just deciding on having the interviews in public. I'm taking it that you don't think they should be in public.
That's why I said no. You're absolutely correct.
So you can since this is not a board vote, you can certainly raise this under old business next week, when ideally you would have a more complete, I'm sorry, 2 weeks, you're right, which is still well before the interviews on May 10th.
And that does-
You can have that discussion, continue that discussion at that point.
And would I be correct in assuming that that doesn't hamper the ability for Joe to put out the advertisement?
That's a totally separate issue.
Okay, so,
I just have a question, though. When we're interviewed in public. We do public forums for candidates night. It's all out in the open. I would like to know why you feel that this should be held in private. And I don't want to make it like picking on you night. I'm just curious
no,
on this.
but as I said at the beginning of, or after my no vote, I think that we should have the fullest board we can have here when we make that decision.
But
That's
again,
all.
each board member is up here and participated in public interviews already. Any reason that a board member would think that they should be interviewed in private opposed to in public would just make people in the public assume they have something to hide. So I am just trying to keep full disclosure with the parents of this district and allow them to view the interview. We talk about including, we talk about
Transparency.
transparency. This is where you can, as president, show you're not only talking the talk, but you're walking the walk.
May I make just one other point? So I will just be advertising this vacancy in the Home News Tribune. So there were some questions directed to me about whether or not the board secretary, would be putting this on social media. I am just advertising this consistent with what the policy is, which is in the Home News Tribune.
And on your website?
And on the website, yes.
That's sufficient.
You know what,
You don't
I
need to
actually-
dabble on social media.
I meant to bring that up too,
Yes.
because in the New Jersey School Board's best practices. I was the one who reached out to you, Mr. Mara, and said, when you advertise, would it be possible for the board members to get a copy of that they could use to put out on social media, because the New Jersey School Boards Association actually recommends that.
The advertisement is an operable document, so I can provide it to you. It's just that the district will not be posting it on a Facebook website or anything like that. Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I just want to propose also that if this ends up being something that we do in private, I would like to have a vote on if we could have the interview answers, questions and answers, then put out to the public. If they can't see it happen live, let them read what the answers were.
There's nothing in your bylaw that prohibits that, Ms. Lent. So if we get to that point after the continuation of this discussion next week, you can then raise that motion too.
One more question. There's only 8 of us. What happens if it's a 4-4 tie?
Then your bylaw controls, and if your bylaw is ambiguous, and I do not have it in front of me right now. Yeah, then we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
And I would also suggest that each of the candidates who does agree to the public meeting, if they decide that they don't want it.
That is not a candidate's call.
Okay.
The structure of the interview process belongs to the 8 of you.
All right, very good. As long as it's clear.
Hey, Frank. I just wanted to address Ms. Callie's concern about the touring that we did today, actually. So part of my campaigning was to kind of do a day in the life of a student, even prior to the long-term, long-range committee. So I actually initiated on myself to go visit elementary schools, the high schools. So I actually went to visit Carpenter and Grissom, which was a delightful visit. Wasn't for long-range planning or closing schools. I wanted to see the lunchrooms and what they're eating and the recess. It was more like I had a cookie. I had a cookie. That's as far as I was going to take it. It was good. It was good.
I never saw him eat it. He just carried it around.
I did not. And then today, I went to go see the high school. Not for the long-range planning, but I did ask Frank to come. I mentioned to Dave to meet us, so I wanted to sprinkle a little positive news on the meeting because it seems a little tense, but on a positive note, I was pleasantly surprised at my visit of the high school today. It definitely disparaged some of the rumors that I've heard about who walks around the halls and the bathrooms being closed. I didn't see it. I mean, if it was staged, knowing that I was coming, they did a great job. I think there was a movie, The Funny Farm, with Chevy Chase. They staged the whole town to make them buy the house, but great movie. But the staff, I met the vice principals, I got to see the electives, the shops, the wood shop, automotive, very impressed. Dr. Sasser runs a tight ship. I actually emailed him today. I called him the Morgan Freeman of Old Bridge because from the movie Stand By Me, he was just high-fiving kids and fist-pumping kids. The guy was incredible. I mean, he just, with his staff and the students. And I will say that as a parent of Old Bridge, I'd be proud to send my kids to Old Bridge High School. It was an incredible, yeah, it was incredible. So we did start a tour. It wasn't really formal, but again, my campaigning was the day in the life of a student, and I'm going to continue to do that outside of long range. I mean, I want to see the other elementary schools, the middle school, because you can't see that on these forms. You can't, what you see is not the same with what you read. A lot of statistics that go out. When I went to see Grissom, I mean, teachers were begging me, don't fill up the classrooms. I mean, there was like a little space, so you got to see it. And I mentioned to Mrs. Cittadino, I was pleasantly surprised to see what I saw today, so thank you.
Just so we're clear,
Yes.
I wasn't.
No, but I'm saying when you talked about.
I knew you were in the high school.
Okay.
And no, that's,
Right.
I wanted to know if the long-range plan.
Yeah, so that wasn't a part of that.
Tour was part of it, what board members were chosen, were the other board members given an opportunity to be advised? And I got my answer, the answer was no.
Okay.
I just want to clarify, too, that each time you've had a visit, Mr. Slade had a visit, he did bring it to my attention first, the principal's attention first, that he'd like to come, and it was done that way. We followed the policy in place for board members, and that's what I would encourage anyone to do. I'm not, I didn't know Mr. Weber was coming today, but if you're going, and I don't think it was done, like you said. You had brought it up to me, and we had talked about it in the past, that you wanted to visit some of the schools. I said, great, just let me know when and where, and I'll make the arrangements. And, if you're going to want to visit a school, the policy states that you have to make the arrangements ahead of time with a minimum of the building principal. They're going to copy me anyway, so you're better off just copying me and the building principal. And then that is procedure for anyone who, especially a board member, looking to visit a school.
I just wanted to, so I wanted to quickly mention the Old Bridge High School Indoor Percussion and Winter Guard. This, whatever the 19th is, that's a Tuesday, is having a fundraiser at 5:30 at the main gym. It's $10 for adults, $5 for students or seniors, and that's it.
Any other new business?
Yes. I would like to know if it is possible to create a parent-child workshop for DEI that just focuses in on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Whether it's a virtual workshop in which parents and children could attend, or in person. I think it's fantastic that we're teaching children in the school and teaching the teachers all about it, but I think that the parents, because it's, you may lose something when you go home and you're hearing something different, or you're experiencing something different from home. So I think that we need to start taking what we're teaching the kids and teaching the parents as well. And I think, without teaching both, it's really not going to accomplish much.
I agree. And Dr. Hoker, I know that we have a workshop coming up on inclusivity. If you want to talk about that, and then maybe how we can piggyback that and bring it out to a public forum for parents and to come again with their children later in the day.
We have a workshop scheduled in May with, don't want to butcher the name, but Fred Batiglione. I know one of our board members had shared that information, and we've partnered in the past, but he will be coming and providing best practices on inclusivity to our administrative team, and then we will be sending a team out to visit other schools that have some of these best practices in place so that we can bring those back to our district and see what we're doing. They're going to visit our schools as well, and see what we're doing that we're doing well, and how to improve upon that, and what areas that we can look at for additional improvement. We can work through that organization to see what we can set up for parents and add in the diversity, equity component as well as the inclusivity.
I would love to participate in that if we're able.
Okay.
Me too.
I just want to thank our students and our staff here from Moore Memorial School, celebrating the button project that they're working on, and the money going to Ukraine. Scott Mazzelli gave me a thumbs up. I think they raised over $1,000, maybe it was more so just tonight, and I think their original goal was $100. So great job by the staff there and our students. And yes, if you don't have a button, please get one on the way out, going to a great cause. We do have a large Ukrainian population here in Old Bridge, and we want to support them. SEPTA, amazing. Shanna, she left, but she'll watch this later on. Amazing, knocked it out of the park. Again, the Harlem Wizards was a great family event, packed house, and I was, in a great seat to see the kids' faces and the families' faces. Everyone was engaged and entertained the whole time, and all the money going to a good cause. But that was a huge, huge undertaking, and SEPTA leadership and its program, amazing. Teacher volunteers, volunteer players, administrators, everyone across the gamut who volunteered to be part of the program in whatever role. You did a great job for all the kids that will impact for years to come. So thank you very much for that. And I see our student representative, Anthony, here. Anthony, please go to the dais. You're not allowed to disobey me. It's directed. Ah, good. And you're going to give us the final score too? Thank you.
So Old Bridge and East Brunswick are one of the greatest rivals in the GMC this year. And although we play for different high school teams, a lot of us still play for the same club team. And this year, Old Bridge and East Brunswick teamed up to raise money for our Lax Out Cancer event. And it shows the true values of our teams and what we stand for. Our coaches work hard to make us better players on the field and better men in life. Matthew Mikowski, our starting face-off player, he has a brother, Danny, who was recently diagnosed with leukemia. Danny was a former Old Bridge lacrosse player, and this shows that even after our players graduate, they're still part of the Old Bridge family. So we like to say, once a night, always a night. Danny and Matt's parents both work for the district. Scott Mikowski is a security officer, and Laura Mikowski is a paraprofessional. Tonight's game was dedicated to Danny. And now, the outcome of the game and the fundraiser. We were able to raise over $4,500 that goes directly to the Mikowski family. And I would love to add that the Old Bridge Boys Lacrosse beat East Brunswick 10-9. Thank you.
You're dismissed. Great job. You guys did a great job. It's great to see these players, and when you're in a lacrosse family, the kids all, like Anthony said, he plays on the same club team as my son. So, and I've known him since he was a young man. Memorial School, correct? I'm sorry, McDivitt School, and we've had a great time watching him grow up to the gentleman that he is. And I put that on. Not many people ask me to write their college recommendation, but I was happy to say that I've seen him grow from a young person to a gentleman, and he's not only a gentleman in the athletic world, but in the classrooms and everything does. Whenever I see a kid down on the field or in the school, he's one of the first kids to come up and pick him up. So, great job. All the kids did a great job today, and I'm very proud of what they could do for Danny and his family.
You do have executive session, so we need a motion for exec session for personnel, building security, and attorney-client privilege, with the understanding that the board will not be back except just to adjourn.
Can I just make one more comment just before we close? I know, Chris, hold down the enthusiasm. I don't speak a lot at these things. I like to listen and just absorb, and I think you learn more by listening than you do speaking a lot of times. So I just want to clarify that my frustration with the female in authoritative roles is not a direct or personal attack at Frank. It's just an effort to try to understand the reasoning behind this. Another parent mentioned you have to look around the room and see who's missing at the table. I have a seat at the table, I just feel I don't have a voice at the table. And it's not about me being chair, it's about females being recognized. I'm VP of HR. I deal in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours solely on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I take countless training sessions, everything on this. And so my sole job during the day is just to make sure everyone feels included. Everyone feels that they're heard, that they're valued. And I feel that this board, as great as we are, lacks that. And I would like to see, just going forward, some more recognition, just some more trust, some more faith, and just to listen more than we speak sometimes, just to hear what other people have to say. Because I think it could be beneficial. And everyone could take or leave that suggestion, it's up to you, but that's my 2 cents, and I appreciate everyone listening to me rant tonight. I promise I won't speak for like 5 more meetings. I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're going into executive session at 9:14.